The construction site echoed with shouts as concrete dust filled the air. Marcus Rodriguez didn't think twice before diving toward the collapsing scaffolding where a woman lay trapped beneath twisted metal beams. His calloused hands worked frantically to free her pale form from the debris, and when he finally pulled her to safety, something made him pause. Even unconscious and covered in dust, there was something ethereally beautiful about her porcelain skin and platinum-white hair that seemed to catch every ray of sunlight filtering through the chaos. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. What Marcus didn't know was that this moment would change everything he thought he understood about love, acceptance, and finding light in the darkest places. The alarm clock's harsh buzzing cut through the pre-dawn silence of Marcus Rodriguez's cramped studio apartment. At 28, his weathered hands and perpetually tired eyes told the story of a man who had shouldered more responsibility than most his age. He rolled off the fold-out couch that served as his bed, careful not to wake the small figure sleeping peacefully in the apartment's only bedroom. Marcus padded quietly to the kitchenette, his bare feet silent on the worn linoleum floor. Coffee was a luxury he couldn't always afford, but today was payday, so he allowed himself the small indulgence. As the ancient coffee maker gurgled to life, he peered through the thin curtain at the city awakening outside their third-floor window. Construction cranes dotted the skyline like mechanical giants, and somewhere among them, he'd spend the next 10 hours laying foundation blocks under the unforgiving Texas sun. "Papa," came a sleepy voice from the bedroom doorway. 7-year-old Sophia appeared, rubbing her eyes with tiny fists, her dark curls a perfect mirror of her father's. She dragged her stuffed elephant behind her, its once bright purple fabric now faded from countless nights of comfort. "Morning, princessa," Marcus whispered, scooping her into his arms. Sophia giggled as he spun her around the small space, momentarily transforming their modest apartment into a palace ballroom. These morning moments were sacred to him, stolen minutes before the harsh realities of single parenthood and financial strain demanded his attention. As Marcus prepared Sophia's breakfast, he mentally calculated the day ahead. Drop her at Mrs. Chen's apartment downstairs by 7:30, work the construction site until 6, pick up Sophia, then rush to his evening job cleaning offices downtown until midnight. It was a routine that left him exhausted, but determined. Every blister on his hands, every ache in his back, every hour of sleep sacrificed was for Sophia's future. "Papa, why do other kids have mommies and I don't?" Sophia asked between bites of cereal, her innocent question hitting Marcus like a physical blow. It was a conversation they'd had variations of before, but it never got easier. Marcus sat across from her at their tiny table, choosing his words carefully. "Some families look different, Maya. Your mama, she got very sick when you were a baby. She's watching over us from heaven now." The partial truth felt heavy on his tongue. The whole story, that Isabella had struggled with addiction and overdosed, when Sophia was barely 2, was too complex and painful for a 7-year-old to understand. Sophia nodded solemnly, then brightened. "Mrs. Chen says angels watch over people they love. Maybe Mama is my angel." "I think she is," Marcus agreed, his voice thick with emotion. He reached across to smooth Sophia's hair, marveling at how she could find such pure hope in circumstances that would break many adults. Their morning routine continued with practiced efficiency. Marcus helped Sophia dress in her school uniform, packed her lunch with an apple and a sandwich made from the last of the bread, and gathered her backpack. As they prepared to leave, Sophia tugged on his work shirt. "Papa, will you be at the school play next Friday?" she asked, her eyes wide with hope. Marcus's heart sank. Friday was when he typically picked up overtime shifts that helped cover their rent. "I'll do everything I can to be there, princessa. You're going to be the most beautiful angel in the whole play." He kissed the top of her head, silently vowing to find a way to make it work, even if it meant eating rice and beans for the rest of the month. After dropping Sophia with Mrs. Chen, a kind elderly woman, who charged half what other babysitters did, because she'd grown to love Sophia like her own granddaughter, Marcus made his way to the construction site. The Rodriguez family had once owned a small restaurant in the neighborhood, but after his father's heart attack and the mounting medical bills, they'd lost everything. Marcus had dropped out of community college to work full-time, dreams of becoming an architect replaced by the immediate need to survive. The construction site was already bustling with activity when Marcus arrived. He nodded to his co-workers, men who, like him, carried the weight of families on their shoulders. The project was a new luxury apartment complex, the kind of place Marcus could never afford to live but took pride in building well. Every beam he set, every foundation he poured was crafted with the same care he'd want in his own home, if he could ever afford one. "Rodriguez, you're on the upper floors today," called Tony, the site foreman. "We need those support beams in place before the inspection tomorrow." Marcus strapped on his hard hat and tool belt, beginning the familiar climb up the skeletal structure of what would someday be someone's home. The work was physically demanding, but he found a meditative rhythm in it. Each strike of his hammer, each measurement and adjustment, required focus that temporarily pushed away his worries about bills and Sophia's future. Mid-morning brought an unusual commotion to the site. Emergency vehicles were arriving across the street where another construction project was underway. Marcus could see smoke rising from the neighboring site, and the sound of shouting workers carried on the wind. "Looks like trouble over there," muttered Jake, a fellow worker who had become something of a friend to Marcus. "Hope everyone's okay." Marcus nodded, returning to his work but keeping one eye on the developing situation. In construction, accidents were an ever-present danger, and every worker understood that any day could bring tragedy. It was a risk that came with jobs that paid enough to support families but offered little in the way of safety nets. The morning progressed with its usual challenges and small victories. Marcus took satisfaction in the precision of his work, the way each beam fit perfectly into place, creating something strong and lasting. It was honest work, the kind his grandfather had taught him to value above all else. During his lunch break, Marcus found a quiet spot away from the noise and chaos to call Mrs. Chen and check on Sophia. The elderly woman's voice was warm, as she reported that Sophia was having a good day, playing with the other children she watched and working on her homework. "She's such a bright girl, Marcus," Mrs. Chen said, her accented English filled with affection. "She was showing the other children how to read the big words in her book. You should be proud." Marcus smiled, feeling a familiar swell of love and pride for his daughter. "She gets that from you, Mrs. Chen, all the patience you have with them." "Nonsense," the old woman chuckled. "That girl has your determination and her mother's gentle spirit. She's going to do wonderful things someday." The reference to Isabella brought the familiar pang of loss and regret. Isabella had been beautiful and kind, with dreams of becoming a teacher, but she'd also been fragile, struggling with demons that Marcus hadn't fully understood until it was too late. He'd tried to save her, had begged her to get help, but addiction had proven stronger than love. Now he carried the weight of raising their daughter alone, determined to give Sophia everything Isabella would have wanted her to have. After lunch, Marcus returned to work with renewed energy. The afternoon sun beat down mercilessly, but he was accustomed to working in all weather. Construction didn't stop for heat, cold or rain, and neither could he if he wanted to keep food on the table. It was around 3 o'clock when the accident happened at the neighboring site. A section of scaffolding, weakened by improper installation and the weight of construction materials, gave way with a tremendous crash. Marcus looked up from his work to see dust and debris billowing across the street, and the sound of workers shouting in panic. Without hesitation, Marcus set down his tools and ran toward the accident site. His foreman called after him, but Marcus was already climbing over the barrier that separated the two construction zones. Several other workers followed, understanding that in their line of work, helping others wasn't just expected, it was a moral imperative. The scene was chaotic. Twisted metal scaffolding lay scattered across the ground, and construction materials were scattered everywhere. Through the dust and confusion, Marcus could hear someone crying for help. Following the sound, he spotted a section of scaffolding that had trapped someone underneath. Moving closer, Marcus could see a woman lying beneath the twisted metal beams. She appeared to be unconscious, her hard hat thrown several feet away. What struck him immediately was her unusual appearance, even covered in concrete dust. Her skin was remarkably pale, almost porcelain-like, and her hair was a striking platinum white. Marcus called to the other workers converging on the scene. "Over here, someone's trapped." Together they worked to carefully lift the heavy metal beams off the woman. Marcus took charge, his natural leadership skills emerging as he directed the rescue effort. "Easy, easy," he cautioned, as they lifted each piece of debris. "We don't know what injuries she might have. Let's not make anything worse." When they finally freed her, Marcus gently checked for signs of consciousness. The woman was breathing but unresponsive, a small cut on her forehead bleeding slightly. Up close he could see that her unusual coloring wasn't from the concrete dust. Her skin was naturally pale, her eyebrows and eyelashes the same platinum white as her hair. She was, he realized, albino. "Ambulance is on the way," called one of the other workers. Marcus nodded, carefully positioning himself to shield the woman from the harsh afternoon sun. Something about her vulnerability struck him deeply. Even unconscious and injured, there was a dignity about her that commanded respect. As they waited for emergency services, Marcus found himself studying her face. She looked to be around his age, with delicate features that seemed almost ethereal. Her work clothes indicated she was some kind of professional, not a construction worker, which raised questions about what she'd been doing at the site. The paramedics arrived quickly, efficiently taking over her care. As they loaded her onto a stretcher, one of them asked if anyone knew her name, or had information about next of kin. Marcus realized he felt a strange sense of responsibility for this stranger, this unusual woman he'd helped rescue. "I pulled her out," he told the paramedic. "Is she going to be okay?" "Looks like a concussion and some minor injuries, but she's breathing well and her vitals are stable," the paramedic replied. "You probably saved her life getting her out when you did. Good work." As the ambulance pulled away, Marcus stood in the dust and chaos of the accident scene, feeling oddly unsettled. Something about the encounter had affected him in a way he couldn't explain. Maybe it was the vulnerability of the woman, or the way she'd seemed to almost glow despite being covered in dust and debris. Whatever it was, he found himself hoping she would be okay. Returning to his own worksite, Marcus tried to refocus on his tasks, but his mind kept drifting to the woman with the platinum hair. His co-workers were full of questions about the rescue, treating him like something of a hero, but Marcus deflected their praise. He'd done what anyone would have done, what anyone should have done. The rest of the workday passed in a blur of routine tasks and persistent thoughts about the accident. When 5:30 arrived, Marcus was relieved to pack up his tools and head home. The evening routine with Sophia awaited, and then another few hours of cleaning office buildings to make ends meet. Mrs. Chen had dinner waiting when he arrived, to pick up Sophia, a kindness that never failed to touch Marcus deeply. The elderly woman had become like a grandmother to Sophia, filling a void that Marcus hadn't even realized existed until she'd entered their lives. "How was your day, Papa?" Sophia asked as they walked hand in hand back to their apartment. She chattered about her day at school, the friends she'd played with, the story Mrs. Chen had read to them. Her innocent joy was infectious, lifting Marcus's spirits, despite his fatigue. "It was interesting, Princesa," Marcus replied, thinking of the rescue. "Sometimes we get to help people, and that makes everything worthwhile." "Like superheroes?" Sophia asked, her eyes lighting up with excitement. Marcus laughed, squeezing her small hand. "Something like that. But real heroes are just regular people who help when someone needs it." That evening, as Sophia worked on her homework at their small kitchen table, Marcus found himself distracted by thoughts of the woman he'd rescued. He wondered if she had family worried about her, if she was conscious yet, if she was in pain. The concern surprised him with its intensity. He was used to caring about Sophia, Mrs. Chen, his co-workers, but feeling this connected to a complete stranger was new territory. After putting Sophia to bed with her usual bedtime story and gentle song, Marcus prepared for his evening shift at the office complex downtown. The cleaning job was solitary work that gave him time to think, but tonight his thoughts kept returning to pale skin and platinum hair, to the strange sense of recognition he'd felt when looking at the unconscious woman's face. The office building was quiet, except for the hum of fluorescent lights and the distant sound of traffic outside. Marcus worked methodically through each floor, emptying trash cans, vacuuming carpets, and wiping down surfaces. The repetitive nature of the work usually helped him process the day's events, but tonight it only seemed to amplify his preoccupation with the accident. Why couldn't he stop thinking about her? It wasn't attraction, exactly, though he had to admit she was beautiful in an otherworldly way. It was something deeper, a sense that their paths crossing had been significant somehow. Marcus had never been one to believe in fate or destiny, but something about the rescue felt different from the random accidents that occasionally brought people together. As he cleaned the windows on the 15th floor, looking out at the city lights spread below, Marcus made a decision. Tomorrow, He would find out which hospital the woman had been taken to, and check on her condition. It was the decent thing to do, the responsible thing to do as the person who had rescued her. At least, that's what he told himself. The thought of visiting a stranger in the hospital made him nervous. What would he say? How would he explain his concern? But the alternative, not knowing if she was okay, seemed worse. For reasons he couldn't fully articulate, the woman with the platinum hair had become important to him in the span of a single afternoon. Finishing his cleaning rounds near midnight, Marcus headed home to his sleeping daughter and another few hours of rest before the cycle began again. As he settled onto the fold-out couch, staring at the ceiling in the darkness, he wondered what tomorrow would bring. Little did he know that his decision to check on the injured woman would set in motion a series of events that would transform not only his life but also the lives of everyone he cared about. The woman he'd rescued, Dr. Elena Vasquez, was already beginning to stir in her hospital bed across town, her pale blue eyes opening to fluorescent lights and wondering how a routine site inspection had turned into a nightmare of twisted metal and darkness. And somewhere in her concussed mind, she carried the faint memory of strong arms lifting her to safety, and a voice telling her everything would be okay. The next morning found Marcus standing awkwardly in the sterile hallway of Memorial Hospital, a small bouquet of grocery store flowers clutched in his calloused hands. He'd asked around the construction site, and learned that the woman he'd rescued had been brought here. The receptionist had been hesitant to give information to a stranger, but when Marcus explained he was the one who'd pulled her from the wreckage, her expression softened. Dr. Elena Vasquez, room 314, she'd said with a knowing smile. She's been asking about her rescuer all morning. Now, standing outside her door, Marcus second-guessed his decision to come. What did a construction worker have to say to a doctor? He was about to turn around when a soft voice called from inside the room. "Please, come in. I can see your shadow under the door." Marcus pushed open the door to find Elena sitting up in her hospital bed, looking remarkably alert for someone who'd been unconscious the day before. In the harsh fluorescent lighting, her unique appearance was even more striking than he remembered. Her platinum hair was pulled back in a simple braid, revealing delicate features and pale blue eyes that seemed to hold depths of intelligence and something else, a loneliness that Marcus recognized because he carried it himself. "You're the one who saved me," Elena said, her voice carrying a slight accent that Marcus couldn't quite place. "The nurses told me you wouldn't leave until the ambulance arrived." "Anyone would have done the same," Marcus replied, suddenly feeling foolish about the flowers. "How are you feeling?" "Like I was hit by falling scaffolding," Elena said with a wry smile that transformed her entire face. "But the doctors say I'm remarkably lucky, a mild concussion, and some bruising, but nothing that won't heal." She gestured to the chair beside her bed. "Please, sit. I was hoping I'd get to thank you properly." Marcus settled into the uncomfortable hospital chair, noting how Elena instinctively positioned herself away from the window where afternoon sunlight streamed in. Even in the hospital, she wore what appeared to be specialized sunglasses pushed up on her head. "What were you doing at a construction site?" Marcus asked, genuinely curious. "The nurses mentioned you're a doctor." Elena's expression grew animated, a passion lighting her features that made her seem to glow from within. "I'm an environmental engineer actually. I was conducting a safety inspection for the city. The building wasn't up to code, which is why the scaffolding failed." She paused, studying Marcus with those penetrating pale eyes. "I could have died if you hadn't acted so quickly. The beam that fell missed my head by inches." "You scared me," Marcus admitted, surprising himself with his honesty. "Seeing you lying there, not moving. I've never moved so fast in my life." Something passed between them in that moment, an understanding that went beyond gratitude and heroism. Elena tilted her head, studying him with scientific curiosity, mixed with something warmer. "You have kind eyes," she said softly. "I noticed them even through my concussion yesterday. There's sadness there, but kindness too." Marcus felt heat rise in his cheeks. He wasn't used to being analyzed so directly, especially by someone as clearly intelligent as Elena. "I should let you rest," he said, standing abruptly. "I just wanted to make sure you were okay." "Wait," Elena called as he moved toward the door. "What's your name? I can't keep thinking of you as my mysterious rescuer." "Marcus Rodriguez," he said, turning back to face her. "Marcus," she repeated, as if testing how it sounded. "Would you think it strange if I said I'd like to see you again?" not because of some misplaced gratitude, but because she trailed off, seeming to search for words. Because I feel like we have more to talk about. Marcus stared at her, taken aback by her directness. In his world, relationships develop slowly, carefully, with none of this refreshing honesty. I'd like that, he found himself saying. But I should warn you, my life is complicated. I have a daughter, and work takes up most of my time. Elena's face lit up with genuine interest. You're a father, how old is she? 7.
Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story.
Her name is Sophia. Marcus pulled out his phone, showing Elena his lock screen photo of Sophia grinning toothlessly at the camera. She's the most important thing in my world. She's beautiful, Elena said, studying the photo with an expression Marcus couldn't quite read. She has your eyes, but there's something else there. Intelligence, curiosity. She gets that from spending time with books, Marcus said proudly. Loves to read, always asking questions about how things work. A future scientist perhaps, Elena suggested with a smile. I'd love to meet her sometime, if that would be appropriate. The casual way she said it, as if meeting his daughter was a natural progression rather than a monumental step, surprised Marcus. Most people were intimidated by the reality of dating a single parent. Let me give you my number, Elena continued, reaching for a pen from her bedside table. Call me when you have time. Maybe we could meet for coffee. Somewhere with good shade, she added with a self-deprecating smile, gesturing to her pale skin. Marcus took the slip of paper, Elena's neat handwriting somehow making the exchange feel more real. I work until 6 most days, then I have Sophia in the evenings. Weekends are usually better. I understand completely. Elena said, family comes first. Always. Walking out of the hospital, Marcus felt a lightness he hadn't experienced in years. There was something about Elena that intrigued him beyond her unusual appearance. Her directness, her obvious intelligence, the way she'd immediately understood his priorities without judgment. It all felt refreshing after years of careful navigation around Sophia's needs and his own limitations. That evening, as he helped Sophia with her homework, she noticed his distracted mood. Papa, you seem happy today, she observed with the perceptive nature that always amazed him. Did something good happen at work? Marcus considered how to explain the situation. Sophia was mature for her age, but the concept of him having interest in someone other than her was delicate territory. I met someone interesting, he said carefully. A lady who was hurt at work yesterday. I helped her, and today I visited her in the hospital to make sure she was okay. Sophia's dark eyes widened with interest. Is she pretty? She's very different looking, Marcus said, choosing his words carefully. She has white hair and very pale skin because of something called albinism. But yes, she's beautiful in her own way. Like the princess in my fairy tale book, Sophia exclaimed. The one with hair like moonlight. Marcus smiled at his daughter's romantic interpretation. Something like that, princessa. Are you going to be friends with her? Sophia asked, returning to her coloring with the casual acceptance that children possessed. Maybe, Marcus said. Would that be okay with you? Sophia considered this seriously. Her crayon paused mid-stroke. As long as she's nice to you and she doesn't try to take away our time together. Nothing could ever take away our time together, Marcus assured her, kissing the top of her head. You're my number one girl, always. The next few days passed normally, but Marcus found himself thinking about Elena at unexpected moments. During his lunch break, while hammering nails, even while Sophia chattered about her day, Elena's pale eyes and direct gaze would surface in his thoughts. He carried her phone number in his wallet, pulling it out occasionally to stare at her neat handwriting. It was Friday afternoon when he finally called, using his break time at the construction site to dial her number from a quiet corner away from the machinery noise. Marcus, Elena's voice was warm with genuine pleasure. I was hoping you'd call. How are you? Good, he said, suddenly nervous. Busy week, but good. How are you feeling? Back to work yet? The doctors cleared me yesterday, though I'm supposed to take it easy for another week. I've been going stir-crazy in my apartment, actually. Too much time to think. There was a pause, then Elena's voice became more tentative. I was wondering if you'd like to meet for coffee tomorrow. I know a place with a great covered patio, very shaded. I'd like that, Marcus said, feeling that same lightness from the hospital. What time works for you? I have Sophia until about 2, then my neighbor watches her for a few hours on Saturday afternoons. 2:30 would be perfect. There's a cafe called Luna's on Maple Street. Do you know it? Marcus knew the area, though he'd never been able to afford to eat at the trendy cafes that had sprung up in the gentrifying neighborhood. I'll find it. Marcus, Elena said, her voice softer now. I want you to know, I don't do this often. Meet strangers for coffee, I mean. There's something about you that feels safe. Genuine. I don't do this often either. Marcus admitted. Actually, I don't do this at all. You're the first person I've wanted to spend time with in a very long time. Saturday afternoon found Marcus standing outside Luna's cafe, wearing his one good shirt and feeling completely out of place among the artfully distressed furniture and customers typing on expensive laptops. He spotted Elena immediately, seated at a corner table on the covered patio, wearing a flowing white dress that somehow made her alabaster skin look luminous rather than pale. She waved when she saw him, and Marcus noticed how other patrons glanced at her curiously. Elena's unique appearance drew attention wherever she went, but she seemed completely comfortable with it, carrying herself with quiet confidence. You look nice, she said as he approached, and Marcus was grateful he'd decided to skip his usual jeans and work boots. So do you, he replied, meaning it. In the dappled shade of the patio, Elena looked ethereal, like something from one of Sophia's fairy tale books. They ordered coffee, Marcus trying not to wince at the prices on the menu. Elena seemed to notice his discomfort and gently steered the conversation away from the topic of payment when their drinks arrived. Tell me about your daughter, she said, wrapping her hands around her mug. What's she like? Marcus relaxed immediately. Always comfortable talking about Sophia. He told Elena about Sophia's love of reading, her curiosity about everything from why the sky was blue to how computers worked. He shared stories about their weekend adventures to free museums and parks, about Sophia's determination to take care of him even though she was only 7. She sounds remarkable, Elena said, her pale eyes bright with interest. Clearly takes after her father in the best ways. She's smarter than me already, Marcus said with pride. Sometimes I worry I'm not giving her enough, you know. Other kids have tutors and music lessons and all these opportunities. I want her to have everything, but you're giving her the most important thing. Elena interrupted gently, love and stability and your full attention. That's worth more than any number of expensive lessons. Something in her tone suggested she spoke from experience, and Marcus found himself curious about Elena's own background. What about you? Do you have family here? Elena's expression grew more guarded. Not really. I moved here for work a few years ago. My parents died when I was young, and I was raised by my grandmother in New Mexico. She passed away last year. She paused, stirring her coffee absently. I'm used to being on my own. That must be lonely, Marcus said, understanding the weight of isolation all too well. It is sometimes, Elena admitted. Especially since my grandmother died. She was the only person who really understood what it was like, living with albinism. The stares, the questions, the constant need to protect yourself from the sun. She looked up at Marcus with a small smile. She would have liked you, I think. She always said the measure of a person was how they treated others without expecting anything in return. She sounds like a wise woman. She was. Elena's voice grew wistful. Yes. She taught me that being different wasn't something to hide from, but it wasn't something to flaunt either. Just part of who I am, like having brown eyes or being tall. They talked for nearly 2 hours, the conversation flowing easily between topics serious and light. Elena shared stories about her work as an environmental engineer, her passion for making buildings and communities safer. Marcus told her about his dreams of one day starting his own construction company, building homes that working families could actually afford. You know, Elena said as their afternoon wound down. I have a consulting contract with the city that involves inspecting older buildings for safety compliance. I could use someone who understands construction from the ground up, someone who knows what corners contractors might cut. Marcus looked at her suspiciously. Is this charity? This is business, Elena said firmly. I don't offer opportunities to people I don't think can handle them. You clearly know your trade, and you have integrity. Those are rare qualities in my line of work. I already work 60 hours a week, Marcus said, though the idea intrigued him. This would be weekend consulting, a few hours here and there. Good pay. Flexible schedule. Think about it. As they prepared to leave, Elena pulled a business card from her purse and wrote something on the back. My personal number, she explained. Call me if you want to talk more about the work opportunity, or if you just want to talk. Walking home, Marcus felt a strange combination of excitement and fear. Elena represented possibilities he'd stopped allowing himself to imagine, but she also represented risk. Getting involved with someone meant opening his carefully constructed life to potential disruption. And there was Sophia to consider. How would she react to a woman who looked so different from anyone they knew? That evening, as he and Sophia shared their usual Saturday night dinner of homemade pizza and a movie, Sophia surprised him with her perceptiveness. Papa, you seem different today, she said, curled up against his side on their small couch. Happy different? Do I? Marcus asked, running his fingers through her dark curls. Uh-huh. Like when I bring home a good grade and you get that proud smile. But different. Marcus marveled at his daughter's emotional intelligence. I had a nice afternoon. That's all. Remember I told you about the lady I helped at work? I had coffee with her today. Sophia sat up, studying his face with serious dark eyes. The princess lady with the white hair. She's not a princess, matey. She's a regular person who just looks different. But you like her, Sophia said with 7-year-old directness. Marcus considered lying, but Sophia deserved honesty within reason. I think I might, yes. Is that okay with you? Sophia was quiet for a long moment, processing this information with the gravity she applied to all important matters. Will she be nice to me? She finally asked. I think she would be very nice to you, Marcus said carefully. But that doesn't mean anything has to change between us. You're still my #1 girl. Could I meet her sometime? Sophia asked, surprising him with her curiosity rather than jealousy. Maybe, Marcus said. If you really want to. And if she wants to meet you too. I want to meet the lady who makes you smile like that, Sophia said matter-of-factly, settling back against his side. That night, after Sophia was asleep, Marcus sat on their small balcony, looking out at the city lights and thinking about the afternoon. Elena had challenged his assumptions about what was possible in his life. For years he'd focused so completely on survival and providing for Sophia that he'd forgotten to consider that there might be room for more. The business card with Elena's personal number felt like a bridge between his current reality and something unknown but potentially wonderful. The consulting opportunity she'd mentioned could provide extra income, and maybe even lead to the kind of work he'd dreamed of doing. And Elena herself, brilliant, direct, beautiful in an otherworldly way, had shown interest in not just him but in Sophia too. For the first time in years, Marcus allowed himself to imagine a future that included more than just getting by. It was a terrifying and exhilarating prospect. And as he finally headed inside to his fold-out couch, Elena's pale eyes and genuine smile followed him into his dreams. 3 months had passed since Marcus first called Elena's number, and their lives had become beautifully intertwined in ways he'd never expected. Elena's consulting work had proven legitimate and lucrative, providing Marcus with weekend income that finally allowed him to breathe financially. More importantly, Sophia had taken to Elena with an enthusiasm that both warmed and surprised Marcus. Every Saturday morning had become their ritual. Elena would arrive at their apartment with fresh pastries from the bakery near her place, and the three of them would spend the day exploring the city. Elena had introduced Sophia to the Science Museum, the Botanical Gardens, and the children's section of the downtown library that had resources Marcus had never known existed. Watching his daughter's face light up when Elena explained complex scientific concepts in simple terms had become one of Marcus's greatest joys. "Papa, did you know that Elena's skin doesn't make melanin the same way ours does?" Sophia had announced one evening after a particularly educational trip to the Natural History Museum. "That's why she has to be so careful in the sun. It's like she's missing a special protection that most people have." Marcus had marveled at how Elena had turned her difference into a learning opportunity, helping Sophia understand diversity and acceptance in a way that felt natural rather than forced. More than that, Elena seemed to genuinely enjoy Sophia's endless questions and boundless curiosity. The three of them were returning from one of their Saturday adventures, Sophia skipping ahead of them on the sidewalk, when Elena reached for Marcus's hand. It was a simple gesture, but it sent warmth shooting through his entire body. They'd been careful about physical affection in front of Sophia, but this felt natural, right? "She's incredible, you know," Elena said, watching Sophia stop to examine an interesting rock she'd found. "Her mind works so fast, making connections I don't see coming. She's going to do amazing things someday." "She likes you too," Marcus replied, squeezing her hand gently. "Sometimes I think she likes you more than me." Elena laughed, the sound musical in the evening air. "Impossible. You're her whole world, Marcus. I can see it in the way she looks at you, the way she talks about you when you're not around." "When I'm not around?" Marcus asked, raising an eyebrow. "Last week when you went to get us ice cream, she told me all about how you read to her every night even when you're exhausted. How you help her with math homework even though numbers make your head hurt. How you taught her to ride a bike by running alongside her for hours until your legs gave out." Elena's pale eyes were soft with emotion. "She knows how much you love her, and she loves you back just as fiercely." That evening, as Marcus tucked Sophia into bed, she surprised him with an unexpected question. "Papa, are you going to marry Elena?" Marcus nearly choked on his response. "Mija, what makes you ask that? You look at her the way Prince Eric looks at Ariel in my movie," Sophia said matter-of-factly. "And she looks at you the same way. Plus she makes you happy, and she's really smart, and she always brings the good pastries." "Those are all very good reasons," Marcus said, sitting on the edge of her bed. "But marriage is a big decision, Princessa. It would mean Elena would be part of our family officially. I want her to be part of our family," Sophia said without hesitation. "She makes us better. Like when you add the right spice to cooking, and suddenly everything tastes perfect." Marcus kissed his daughter's forehead, amazed once again by her wisdom. "I love you, Sophia. You know that, right? No matter what happens with Elena or anyone else, you're my priority." "I know, Papa. But that doesn't mean there isn't room for more love. Elena taught me that when we were looking at the family of ducks at the pond. The mama duck doesn't love the new ducklings less because there are more of them. She just has more love." Sleep didn't come easily for Marcus that night. Sophia's innocent question had forced him to confront feelings he'd been carefully avoiding. He was falling in love with Elena, had probably already fallen completely. The realization was both thrilling and terrifying. The next morning brought an unexpected complication. Marcus was getting ready for work when his phone rang with a number he didn't recognize. Marcus Rodriguez. The voice was crisp, professional, unfamiliar. "Yes, this is Marcus. This is Janet Morrison from Child Protective Services. We need to schedule a home visit to discuss Sophia's living situation." Marcus felt the world tilt beneath his feet.
"I'm sorry. What? Why would CPS need to visit us? We've received a report expressing concerns about your daughter's welfare. Someone has suggested that your work schedule and living conditions may not be in Sophia's best interests." "Who made this report?" Marcus demanded, his voice rising despite his efforts to stay calm. "I can't disclose that information, Mr. Rodriguez. We're simply required to investigate all reports. Can you be available this Thursday afternoon for a home inspection?" Marcus's mind raced. Who would have called CPS? His life with Sophia wasn't perfect, but she was loved, fed, safe, and thriving. "Thursday afternoon I work until 6. Then we'll schedule for 6:30. Please have all of Sophia's documentation ready. School records, medical records, proof of income and housing information. After the call ended, Marcus sank onto his couch, head in his hands. CPS investigations were serious business. He'd heard horror stories of children being removed from loving homes over bureaucratic misunderstandings. The thought of losing Sophia made him physically sick. He called Elena immediately, his hands shaking as he dialed. "Marcus, you sound upset. What's wrong?" "CPS is investigating me," he said without preamble. "Someone reported me as an unfit parent." "What?" Elena's voice was sharp with disbelief. "That's impossible. You're the best father I've ever seen. Who would do such a thing?" "I don't know. They won't tell me who made the report." Marcus ran his hand through his hair trying to think clearly. "Elena, what if they take her away? What if some bureaucrat decides that a construction worker living in a studio apartment isn't good enough for Sophia?" "That won't happen," Elena said firmly. "We won't let it happen. Listen to me, Marcus. You need to document everything. Every interaction you have with Sophia, every meal you make her, every homework session, every bedtime story. Create a record that shows what an incredible father you are. Thursday they're coming to inspect the apartment. God, Elena, you should see this place through their eyes. It's tiny. The furniture is old. Sophia sleeps in the only bedroom while I take the couch. So we fix what we can fix," Elena said practically. "I'll come over Tuesday evening, and we'll make that apartment shine. We'll organize everything they might want to see. Make sure all your paperwork is perfect." Marcus felt a surge of gratitude so strong it nearly overwhelmed him. "You don't have to get involved in this mess." "Of course I do," Elena replied without hesitation. "Sophia is important to me too. This family is important to me." Tuesday evening, Elena arrived with cleaning supplies, organizational tools, and a determination that impressed even Marcus. Together they transformed the small apartment. Elena helped him organize all of Sophia's school papers, medical records, and documentation of his employment. She even brought a small desk and lamp for Sophia's homework area, making the space look more conducive to learning. "This isn't charity," Elena said when Marcus tried to protest the new furniture. "This is strategy. We want them to see that Sophia has everything she needs to succeed." Sophia, initially excited by the cleaning project, began to sense the underlying tension. "Papa, why are we making everything so perfect? Are we moving?" Marcus knelt down to her level, choosing his words carefully. "Some people from an office want to visit us on Thursday to make sure you're happy and healthy here. They just want to check that I'm taking good care of you. But you take excellent care of me," Sophia said, confusion clear in her dark eyes. "You're the best papa in the whole world. I know that, and you know that, but sometimes grown-ups have rules about these things. So we're just making sure everything looks perfect for their visit." Thursday arrived with agonizing slowness. Marcus could barely concentrate at work, his mind constantly drifting to what the evening might bring. He'd taken a half-day to come home early and prepare, wanting everything to be perfect when the caseworker arrived. Elena showed up an hour before the scheduled visit, carrying a folder of her own. "Character references," she explained. "I called Mrs. Chen, Sophia's teacher, even your foreman Tony. Everyone wants to help." "Elena, I need to ask you something," Marcus said, his voice heavy with reluctance. "Maybe you shouldn't be here when they arrive." Elena stared at him in shock. "Why not?" "Because we're not married. Because you're not Sophia's mother. What if they think it's inappropriate that you're so involved in our lives? What if they use our relationship against me somehow? So you want me to just disappear? Pretend I don't care about either of you? I want you to protect yourself," Marcus said, the words tasting like ash in his mouth. "This could get ugly, and I can't ask you to risk your reputation or your career for us." Elena's pale eyes flashed with something Marcus had never seen before: anger. "You think I care more about my reputation than I care about you and Sophia? You think I'm so shallow that I'd abandon you when things get difficult? I think you have a life that doesn't include the complications of a CPS investigation." Marcus shot back, his own fears making him defensive. I think you have choices I don't have. Don't you dare, Elena said, her voice dangerously quiet. Don't you dare make this about our different backgrounds, or the money I have. This is about cowardice, Marcus. You're scared, so you're pushing me away before I can leave on my own. Maybe I am, Marcus admitted, the fight going out of him. Maybe I'm protecting Sophia from getting attached to someone who might not stay. I've been here for 3 months, Elena said, her voice breaking slightly. 3 months of Saturdays and homework help and bedtime stories. 3 months of falling in love with both of you, and you still think I'm going to just walk away? Before Marcus could respond, there was a knock at the door. Janet Morrison had arrived. Mr. Rodriguez, I'm Janet Morrison from CPS. Is this a good time for our visit? Marcus opened the door to a stern-looking woman in her 50s, carrying a clipboard and wearing an expression that suggested she'd seen too much sadness in her career. Elena stood frozen in the middle of the living room, clearly unsure whether to stay or go. Miss Morrison, I'm Dr. Elena Vasquez, Elena said, stepping forward with her professional composure intact. I'm a family friend. I see, Janet said, making a note on her clipboard. Mr. Rodriguez, shall we begin with a tour of the apartment? The next hour was one of the most stressful of Marcus's life. Janet inspected every corner of the apartment, asked detailed questions about Sophia's routine, nutrition, medical care, and education. She reviewed all the documentation Marcus had prepared, interviewed Sophia privately about her happiness and safety, and asked probing questions about Marcus's work schedule and childcare arrangements. Elena remained throughout the visit, answering questions when asked but mostly staying quietly supportive in the background. Marcus watched Janet's expression for any sign of how the evaluation was going, but the caseworker maintained professional neutrality. Mr. Rodriguez, Janet said finally, closing her folder and addressing him directly. I want to be clear about why we're here. The report we received alleged that you're frequently absent due to work, that Sophia is often left with inadequate supervision, and that your living conditions are unsuitable for a child. Marcus felt his heart sink, but Janet continued. However, what I see here today contradicts those allegations entirely. Sophia is obviously well cared for, happy, and thriving. Your apartment is clean and organized. You have excellent documentation of her medical and educational needs, and the character references speak volumes about your dedication as a father. So what happens now? Marcus asked, hardly daring to hope. I'll file my report recommending that the case be closed with no further action required. You're clearly providing Sophia with a loving, stable home. Janet paused, glancing at Elena. I will note in my report that Sophia benefits from the presence of positive adult role models in her life. After Janet left, Marcus and Elena stood in the sudden quiet of the apartment, the tension of the past few days finally beginning to release its grip on them. I'm sorry, Marcus said quietly. I'm sorry I asked you to leave. I'm sorry I doubted you. You were scared, Elena replied, though her voice was still stiff with hurt. But Marcus, if we're going to be together, really together, you can't shut me out every time things get difficult. I know, you're right. It's just that Sophia is everything to me, and the thought of losing her because of something I did or didn't do. You won't lose her, Elena said firmly. And even if you're scared, even if everything falls apart, I'm not going anywhere. That's what love means, Marcus. Staying even when it's hard. Sophia emerged from her bedroom where she'd been playing during the adult conversation, immediately sensing the emotional undercurrents in the room. Is everything okay? She asked, looking between Marcus and Elena with concern. Everything's perfect, Princessa, Marcus said, scooping her into his arms. The lady from the office said you can stay with me forever and ever. Of course I can, Sophia said with 7-year-old logic. Where else would I go? You're my papa, and this is our home, and Elena is our family too. Marcus looked at Elena over Sophia's head, seeing tears in her pale eyes that matched the ones he felt in his own. Despite the crisis they'd just weathered, despite the fear and doubt that had temporarily driven them apart, they'd emerged stronger. Sophia had called Elena family, and for the first time Marcus allowed himself to believe that maybe, just maybe, they could build something lasting together. But as Elena gathered her things to leave that evening, Marcus noticed something in her expression that worried him. A distance that hadn't been there before. A guardedness that suggested the evening's events had affected her more deeply than she was letting on. He wanted to ask, to push past whatever walls she was rebuilding, but exhaustion and relief made him postpone the conversation. It would prove to be a mistake he'd regret for weeks to come. The weeks following the CPS investigation should have brought relief, but instead, Marcus found himself navigating an unexpected chill in his relationship with Elena. She still came for their Saturday outings with Sophia, still helped with homework and brought pastries, but something fundamental had shifted. The easy intimacy they'd built was replaced by polite conversation and careful boundaries. Marcus tried to address it directly one evening after Sophia had gone to bed, but Elena deflected his attempts with professional politeness that cut deeper than anger would have. "Everything's fine, Marcus," she said, gathering her things to leave earlier than usual. "I'm just busy with work. The city has several new inspection contracts, and I'm trying to establish my consulting firm as the premier choice for environmental safety assessments." It was a reasonable explanation, but Marcus knew Elena well enough now to recognize the walls she was rebuilding. The hurt in her pale eyes when she thought he wasn't looking told a different story. His moment of doubt during the CPS crisis had damaged something precious between them, and he didn't know how to repair it. Sophia noticed the change too, with the perceptive nature that children possessed when it came to the adults they loved. "Papa, why doesn't Elena laugh as much anymore?" she asked one morning over breakfast. "Did you have a fight?" "We had a disagreement, Misha," Marcus said carefully. "Sometimes grown-ups need time to work through their feelings." "But you love her, right?" Sophia pressed, her dark eyes serious. "And she loves us." "Yes, I love her," Marcus admitted, the words feeling both natural and terrifying. "And I think she loves us too." "Then why are you both acting so sad all the time?" Marcus didn't have a good answer for his daughter's question, because the truth was too complex for a 7-year-old to understand. He'd hurt Elena by doubting her commitment, by asking her to step away when things got difficult. And Elena, despite her words about staying even when it was hard, was now keeping herself at a safe emotional distance. The breaking point came on a rainy Thursday evening in October. Marcus was working late at a residential construction site, trying to finish a foundation before the weather turned completely. His phone rang just as he was packing up his tools, and Mrs. Chen's panicked voice immediately set his heart racing. "Marcus, you need to come quickly. Sophia collapsed at school today." They took her to Memorial Hospital. The drive to the hospital was a blur of rain-slicked streets and mounting terror. Sophia had been healthy lately, no episodes with her asthma, no signs of illness. Marcus's mind conjured every possible worst-case scenario as he ran through the hospital corridors to the emergency room. He found Sophia in a small curtained area, looking tiny and pale against the white hospital bed. Tubes and monitors surrounded her, and a doctor Marcus didn't recognize was reviewing her chart with a grave expression. "Mr. Rodriguez." The doctor looked up as Marcus approached. "I'm Dr. Patterson. Sophia has had what appears to be a severe asthmatic episode, but we're also seeing some irregular heart rhythms that concern us." Heart rhythms. Marcus felt the world shifting beneath his feet. She's never had heart problems before. Sometimes these conditions can develop or become apparent as children grow. "We're running additional tests, but I want to be honest with you about what we might be looking at." Dr. Patterson's voice was gentle but direct. "Sophia may need specialized cardiac care, possibly surgery, to correct what appears to be a congenital defect that's been gradually worsening." Marcus sank into the chair beside Sophia's bed, taking her small hand in his much larger one. She was unconscious, breathing assisted by machines, and he'd never felt more helpless in his life. "The surgery," he managed to ask, "how much would something like that cost?" "With insurance, you're still looking at significant out-of-pocket expenses, possibly tens of thousands of dollars. And that's assuming Sophia's current insurance covers the specialized procedures she might need." Marcus closed his eyes, calculating rapidly in his head. Even with the extra income from Elena's consulting work, he had maybe $3,000 in savings. His insurance through the construction company was basic at best, and he'd already seen how quickly medical bills could spiral out of control. Mr. Rodriguez, Dr. Patterson continued. There's something else. Sophia's emergency contact list includes a Dr. Elena Vasquez. Should we notify her of Sophia's condition? Yes, Marcus said without hesitation. Please call Elena. Elena arrived within 30 minutes, still wearing her professional clothes but with her usually perfect hair disheveled from rushing. She took one look at Sophia connected to all the machines, and then immediately focused on Marcus. What did the doctors say? She asked, sitting in the chair next to his. Marcus explained Dr. Patterson's assessment, watching Elena's expression grow more serious with each detail. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment, studying Sophia's sleeping face. The surgery, she said finally. It's at Children's Hospital of San Antonio, isn't it? They have the best pediatric cardiac unit in the state. Probably, Marcus replied. But Elena, I can't afford specialized treatment at a place like that. I'll have to figure out what options I have with basic insurance. No, Elena said firmly. Sophia gets the best care available. Period. Elena, I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm telling you. Elena's pale eyes were fierce with determination. I have savings, Marcus. I have excellent insurance that covers family members. Let me help. We're not family, Marcus said quietly, the words hanging heavy between them. And after everything that happened with CPS, after the way I treated you, I can't take your money. Elena stared at him for a long moment, her expression cycling through hurt, anger, and something else Marcus couldn't identify.
So you'd rather risk Sophia's health than accept help from someone who loves her? That's not what I meant. That's exactly what you meant. Elena interrupted, standing abruptly. You'd rather maintain your pride than let me be part of this family in any meaningful way. Elena, please. No, Marcus. I understand now. I'm good enough to babysit on weekends and help with homework. But when something really matters, when Sophia's life is at stake, you'd rather struggle alone than admit you need me. Elena gathered her purse and coat, her movements sharp with hurt and frustration. I'll be back tomorrow to check on Sophia, but you need to decide what's more important, your pride or your daughter's future. After Elena left, Marcus sat alone with his unconscious daughter, feeling like he'd just destroyed the best thing that had happened to his family in years. A nurse came by periodically to check Sophia's monitors, but otherwise, the night stretched endlessly ahead of him. Around midnight, Sophia stirred, her dark eyes fluttering open. Papa? I'm here, Princessa, Marcus said, squeezing her hand gently. How do you feel? Tired. My chest hurts. Sophia looked around at the hospital equipment, with 7-year-old curiosity rather than fear. You're going to be okay, Marcus promised, hoping it was true. The doctors are taking good care of you. Where's Elena? Sophia asked, looking toward the door expectantly. She was here earlier, but she had to go home. Sophia frowned, studying her father's face with the perceptive nature that always amazed him. Papa, you look sad, sadder than when I'm sick sad. Marcus tried to smile reassuringly, but Sophia wasn't fooled. Did you and Elena have another fight? She asked, her voice small and worried. We had a disagreement about how to help you get better, Marcus said carefully. She wants to help, doesn't she? And you won't let her? Marcus was constantly amazed by his daughter's ability to cut through adult complications and see the heart of matters. It's complicated, Mia. No, it's not, Sophia said with the certainty that only children possessed. Elena loves us, and we love her, and when people love each other they help each other. That's what families do. But Elena isn't technically our family. Yes, she is, Sophia interrupted, her voice growing stronger despite her exhaustion. She's our family because we chose her and she chose us. That's better than just being born into a family. Over the next 24 hours, Marcus wrestled with decisions that would determine Sophia's future. Dr. Patterson explained that Sophia's condition was serious but treatable with surgery at a specialized cardiac center. The procedure would cost approximately $40,000 after insurance, and delaying treatment could result in progressive deterioration of her heart function. Marcus spent hours on the phone with insurance representatives, social workers, and financial aid coordinators at various hospitals. The picture that emerged was bleak. He qualified for some assistance programs, but not enough to cover the full cost of the surgery Sophia needed. Even with payment plans, the financial burden would be crushing. On Friday evening, as Marcus sat exhausted in Sophia's hospital room, Elena appeared in the doorway. She looked as tired as he felt, but she was carrying a folder thick with documents. "I've been making some calls," she said, without preamble, settling into the chair beside Sophia's bed. "I spoke with the cardiac team at Children's Hospital, reviewed Sophia's test results, and researched all the available options for financial assistance." "Elena, I told you. You told me you couldn't accept my help because we're not family." Elena interrupted. "So I have a solution for that problem." She opened the folder and pulled out a document that made Marcus's breath catch in his throat. It was a marriage license application, already partially filled out with their names and information. "Marry me," Elena said, her pale eyes steady on his face. "Not because of some romantic notion, or because we've been dating for a few months, but because Sophia needs us to be a legal family, so she can get the medical care she deserves." Marcus stared at the document, his mind reeling. "Elena, you can't just propose marriage as a medical insurance solution." "Why not?" Elena asked practically. "We love each other, we love Sophia, we work well together as a family unit. The only thing missing is the legal recognition that would allow my insurance to cover Sophia's surgery immediately. Marriage is supposed to be about love, about commitment, about putting the people you care about above your own pride." Elena finished softly. "Marcus, I know you love me. I know you want to build a life together. I see it in your eyes every time you look at me, even when you're being stubborn about accepting help." Sophia stirred in her bed, her eyes opening to take in the scene before her. "Are you talking about getting married?" she asked with 7-year-old directness. Elena and Marcus both turned to look at her, surprised that she was awake and apparently following their conversation. "Elena thinks we should get married so her insurance can help pay for your surgery," Marcus explained carefully. Sophia's face lit up with a smile brighter than anything Marcus had seen since her hospitalization. "That's the best idea ever. You love each other, and I love both of you, and then we'd be a real family officially." "Mia, marriage is a big decision." "Papa," Sophia interrupted, her voice growing serious again. "I know you're scared about the money and about me being sick, but Elena wants to help because she loves us. And if you love her too, then why wouldn't you want to marry her?" Marcus looked between his daughter and the woman who had become so integral to their lives, seeing the hope and love in both their faces. Elena was offering him everything he'd dreamed of but been too afraid to reach for: partnership, security for Sophia's medical needs, and a chance to build the family they'd all been longing for. "There's something you should know," Elena said quietly, her voice trembling slightly. "The CPS report, the one that started this whole mess between us. I know who made it." Marcus felt his stomach drop. "Who?" "My former colleague, Dr. Richard Sterling. He's been trying to get me to come work for his firm, and when I refused, he started asking questions about my personal life. He hired a private investigator to look into my relationships, hoping to find leverage he could use against me professionally." Elena's pale eyes were bright with unshed tears. "He found out about you and Sophia, and he made the CPS report to try to force me to distance myself from you." "Elena," Marcus breathed, understanding finally hitting him. "You knew this during the investigation. You knew someone was trying to hurt us, because of your connection to me, and you still stayed." "Of course I stayed," Elena said simply. "I love you, both of you, and I'm not going to let some small-minded man destroy our family, because he can't handle losing a business deal." Marcus reached for Elena's hand, finally understanding the depth of her commitment to them. She hadn't just risked her reputation by staying during the CPS investigation. She'd endured a deliberate attack on their family, because of her professional relationships. "Elena Vasquez," he said, his voice rough with emotion, "will you marry me? Is that a yes to my proposal, or are you proposing to me?" Elena asked, a smile breaking through her tears. "Both," Marcus said, leaning over to kiss her gently. "Yes to everything."
Yes to marriage. Yes to being a family. Yes to letting you help with Sophia's surgery. Yes to trusting that love is stronger than pride. Sophia clapped her hands together from her hospital bed, her joy infectious despite the medical equipment surrounding her. This is the best day ever. Even though I'm in the hospital, it's still the best day because we're going to be a real family. 3 days later, Marcus and Elena were married in a simple ceremony in the hospital chapel, with Sophia as their maid of honor, wearing a white dress Elena had bought for the occasion, and wheeled down from her hospital room in a wheelchair decorated with flowers. Mrs. Chen served as their witness, crying happy tears as she watched the small family she'd grown to love make their commitment official. The surgery was scheduled for the following week at Children's Hospital, covered completely by Elena's excellent insurance policy, that now included her new stepdaughter. But more than the financial relief, Marcus felt the overwhelming sense of partnership and shared responsibility that came with truly joining his life with Elena's. As they sat together in Sophia's hospital room the night before the surgery, Elena reached into her purse and pulled out a small velvet box. "I have something for Sophia," she said, opening the box to reveal a delicate silver necklace with a small heart pendant. "It belonged to my grandmother. She always said it would bring protection and love to whoever wore it." Sophia's eyes widened as Elena fastened the necklace around her neck. "It's beautiful. Thank you, Elena. I mean, thank you, Mom." The word hung in the air for a moment, precious and fragile and perfect. Elena's eyes filled with tears as she leaned down to kiss Sophia's forehead. "Thank you for choosing me to be your mom," Elena whispered. "It's the greatest honor of my life." As Marcus watched his wife and daughter together, he realized that sometimes the most profound transformations came not from dramatic gestures or perfect timing, but from the simple decision to choose love over fear, trust over pride, and family over everything else that seemed important, but ultimately wasn't. Tomorrow would bring Sophia's surgery, and all the uncertainty that accompanied medical procedures, but tonight they were together, officially and legally a family, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead with the strength that came from unconditional love and unshakable commitment to each other. The morning of Sophia's surgery dawned gray and misty, with the kind of overcast sky that Elena found comforting. For once her sensitivity to sunlight wasn't a concern as she and Marcus walked through the early morning corridors of Children's Hospital of San Antonio. Sophia rode in a wheelchair between them, chattering nervously about everything from the breakfast she'd missed to the teddy bear Elena had given her that morning. "Dr. Martinez seems really nice," Sophia said, clutching the new bear that Elena had named Courage. "She said the surgery will fix my heart so I can run and play without getting tired." "That's right, mi amor," Marcus said, his voice steady despite the fear Elena could see in his dark eyes. "After you heal, you'll be stronger than ever." Elena reached for Marcus's hand as they approached the surgical wing, feeling the calluses on his palm that told the story of his years of hard work. 3 weeks of marriage had taught her to read his moods in the tension of his shoulders, the set of his jaw, the way he held himself when he was trying to be strong for Sophia. The pre-surgery preparation was a whirlwind of medical staff, consent forms and final explanations of the procedure. Dr. Martinez, the pediatric cardiac surgeon, spoke with calm authority about the repair they would make to Sophia's heart, the expected recovery time, and the excellent prognosis for children with Sophia's condition. "The procedure typically takes 3 to 4 hours, Dr. Martinez explained to Marcus and Elena. "We'll keep you updated every hour. Sophia will spend tonight in the cardiac ICU, then move to a regular room tomorrow if everything goes well." When it came time for Sophia to go into surgery, she surprised everyone by being the calmest person in the room. She hugged Marcus tightly, whispering something in his ear that made his eyes fill with tears. Then she turned to Elena with a serious expression. "Take care of Papa while I'm sleeping," she said, reaching up to touch Elena's face with her small hand. "He worries too much, but he won't tell you that. I'll take excellent care of him," Elena promised, leaning down to kiss Sophia's forehead. "And when you wake up, we'll all be here waiting for you." As the surgical team wheeled Sophia away, she waved goodbye with the teddy bear, calling out, "See you soon, Mama and Papa." The word Mama hit Elena with unexpected force, and she found herself fighting back tears as they watched their daughter disappear through the surgical doors. Marcus's arm came around her shoulders, pulling her close as they stood together in the sudden quiet of the waiting area. The next 4 hours tested every reserve of patience and faith that Marcus and Elena possessed. They paced the waiting room, attempted to read magazines, and drank countless cups of terrible coffee. Chen arrived mid-morning with a thermos of real food and her own brand of steady comfort, settling into a corner chair with her knitting and declaring that she wasn't leaving until Sophia was awake and complaining about hospital food. Elena found herself studying Marcus during the long wait, observing how he interacted with other families in the waiting room. He helped an elderly man understand the surgical consent forms his granddaughter needed to sign, played peekaboo with a fussy baby while his parents spoke with doctors, and shared his phone charger with a worried mother whose battery had died. "You do this everywhere, don't you?" Elena asked during a quiet moment, when they'd finally settled into adjacent chairs. "Do what?" Marcus replied, not looking up from the magazine he'd been staring at without reading for the past hour. "Take care of people, look out for others who might need help." Elena gestured around the waiting room, where several families were now more comfortable because of Marcus's small acts of kindness. "It's not something you think about doing, it's just who you are." Marcus shrugged, clearly uncomfortable with the observation. "My father always said that helping others costs nothing but makes everyone richer." "Your father sounds like he was a wise man." "He was. He would have loved Sophia so much." Marcus's voice grew soft with memory. "And he would have loved you too. He always said the measure of a woman wasn't her beauty or her money, but whether she made the people around her better." Elena felt warmth spread through her chest at the compliment, but also a familiar pang of loss. "I wish I could have met him. I wish Sophia could have known him." "She does know him, in a way," Marcus said, finally looking up from the unread magazine. "Every time I teach her something he taught me, every time I tell her one of his stories, he's still here with us." Martinez appeared in the waiting room at 2:30 in the afternoon, still wearing her surgical scrubs, but with a smile that immediately eased the tension that had been building in Elena's chest all day. "The surgery went perfectly," she announced to their small group. "Sophia did beautifully. The repair was exactly what we expected, and her heart is already showing improved function." Marcus sank back in his chair, the relief so profound that Elena worried he might faint. Mrs. Chen immediately began crying happy tears, clutching her knitting to her chest. "When can we see her?" Elena asked, her medical background making her curious about the post-surgical protocols. "She's in recovery now, still sedated from the anesthesia. You can see her in about an hour, but she probably won't be fully awake until this evening." The recovery room was a maze of monitors, tubes, and medical equipment that looked overwhelming, but was actually reassuring to Elena's trained eye. Sophia lay small and pale against the white sheets, but her color was already better than it had been in weeks, and the steady beeping of the heart monitor showed a strong regular rhythm. "She looks so peaceful," Marcus whispered, taking Sophia's small hand in his. "Like she's just sleeping." "She is just sleeping," Elena said softly. "Her body is healing, and her heart is learning to work the way it's supposed to." They spent the afternoon taking turns sitting beside Sophia's bed, speaking to her quietly even though she couldn't hear them yet. Marcus told her about the get-well cards that Mrs. Chen had brought from her classmates, about the flowers that had arrived from his co-workers at the construction site. Elena read from Sophia's favorite book, the fairy tale about the princess with moonlight hair, who saved her kingdom through kindness and courage. Sophia began stirring around dinner time, her dark eyes fluttering open to focus slowly on her parents' faces. "Hi baby," Marcus said gently, his voice thick with emotion. "How do you feel?" "Sleepy," Sophia mumbled, her voice hoarse from the breathing tube that had been removed earlier. "My chest feels funny." "That's normal," Elena explained, adjusting Sophia's blanket carefully around the surgical dressings. "Your heart is all fixed now, but it needs time to heal." "Did it work?" Sophia asked, more alert now. "Is my heart better?" "Your heart is perfect, doctor," Martinez said, appearing beside the bed with Sophia's chart. "In a few weeks, you're going to feel stronger than you ever have before." The next few days blurred together in a routine of hospital visits, medical updates, and the gradual relief that came with Sophia's steady improvement. Elena had taken a leave of absence from her consulting work to be present for Sophia's recovery, and Marcus had arranged for extended time off from his construction job. For the first time since Elena had known them, the Rodriguez family had the luxury of focusing entirely on healing without worrying about lost wages or abandoned responsibilities. On Sophia's fourth day in the hospital, she was moved to a regular pediatric room, with a window that looked out on the hospital's garden. Elena had brought art supplies from home, and Sophia was working on a drawing, while Marcus dozed in the uncomfortable reclining chair that had become his second home. "Elena," Sophia said quietly, not wanting to wake her father, "can I ask you something?" "Of course, sweetheart. What's on your mind? Before you married Papa, were you lonely?" The question caught Elena off guard with its perceptive nature and emotional weight. She set down the medical journal she'd been reading, and gave Sophia her full attention. "Yes," Elena said honestly. "I was very lonely sometimes. I had my work, and I had friends, but I didn't have a family. I didn't have people who loved me the way you and your papa love me." Sophia nodded seriously, as if this confirmed something she'd been thinking about. "I used to be lonely too, even though I had papa. I wanted a mama so much, but I didn't know how to ask for one. And now," Elena asked gently, "now I'm not lonely anymore. Now I have everything I always wanted." Sophia smiled, the expression transforming her entire face. "Papa says that sometimes the best things happen when you're not even looking for them. Your papa is a very smart man." "I know, that's why I knew you were perfect for him. You're both smart, and you both take care of people, and you both love me enough to make sure I'm okay no matter what." Elena felt tears prick her eyes at Sophia's innocent wisdom. "We do love you, sweetheart, more than you could ever imagine." That evening, as visiting hours were ending, and Marcus was preparing to leave for the night, Sophia made an announcement that surprised both her parents. "I want to go home tomorrow," she declared with 7-year-old determination. "I miss my room, and I miss my books, and I want to sleep in my own bed." Dr. Martinez, who was making evening rounds, overheard Sophia's declaration and smiled. "Actually, young lady, if your numbers continue to look this good overnight, we might be able to make that happen.
You've been healing remarkably well." The possibility of going home energized Sophia in a way that all the medical interventions hadn't managed. She insisted on walking the hallway that evening, showing off her surgical scar to the nurses with pride rather than embarrassment. "Look how straight it is," she told Elena as they made their slow progress down the corridor. "Dr. Martinez said it shows that my heart is brave." True to Dr. Martinez's prediction, Sophia was discharged the following afternoon, with a thick packet of home care instructions and a schedule of follow-up appointments. Elena had spent the morning preparing their apartment, installing safety rails and reorganizing Sophia's room to accommodate her recovery needs. The homecoming was everything Elena had hoped it would be. Sophia settled into her own bed with obvious relief, surrounded by the familiar stuffed animals and books that made up her small world. Marcus cooked her favorite dinner, and Mrs. Chen appeared with homemade soup, and enough fussing to make Sophia giggle despite her surgical discomfort. That night, after Sophia had fallen asleep in her own room for the first time in over a week, Marcus and Elena sat together on their small balcony, sharing a bottle of wine that Elena had been saving for a special occasion. "I keep thinking about what you said in the hospital," Marcus said, his voice quiet in the evening air. "About taking care of people being who I am, not something I think about doing." "What about it?" "I was thinking that you do the same thing, but in a different way. You see what people need and you make it happen. You don't ask permission or wait for someone else to solve the problem. You just act." Elena considered this, swirling the wine in her glass. "I suppose we both learned early that if you want something to change, you have to be willing to make it change yourself. Is that why you proposed to me?" Marcus asked with a slight smile. "Because you saw what needed to happen and you made it happen." "Partly," Elena admitted. "But mostly because I couldn't imagine my life without you and Sophia in it." The marriage proposal was practical, but the love behind it was purely selfish. Selfish how? Because I wanted to keep you. Both of you. I wanted to be part of your family so badly that I was willing to risk everything, including my pride, to make it happen. Marcus reached for her hand, intertwining their fingers in the gesture that had become natural to them. For the record, you didn't risk anything. You were already part of our family long before we made it legal. Over the following weeks, Sophia's recovery progressed better than anyone had dared to hope. Her energy returned gradually but steadily, and the improvement in her color and stamina was dramatic. More importantly to Elena, Sophia's emotional recovery seemed to parallel her physical healing. The experience of going through surgery as part of a complete family unit had given her a confidence and security that showed in everything from her posture to her willingness to try new activities. Elena found herself settling into the role of stepmother with surprising ease. Her scientific background made her excellent at managing Sophia's medical care and therapy schedules, while her natural teaching instincts emerged in helping with homework and encouraging Sophia's curiosity about the world around them. Marcus, meanwhile, was discovering the profound relief that came with true partnership. For the first time since Sophia's birth, he had someone who shared the weight of parental responsibility, someone who loved Sophia as much as he did, and was equally invested in her future. The changes in their daily life were both subtle and revolutionary. Elena's apartment had been too formal and sterile for a family with a young child, so they'd decided to look for a house that could accommodate all three of them comfortably. Elena's consulting business was thriving, partly due to her reputation for thoroughness and partly because word had spread about her ability to spot potential safety issues that other inspectors missed. Marcus had made the decision to start his own construction company, focusing on affordable housing for working families. Elena's business connections had helped him secure his first contracts, but it was his reputation for quality work and fair dealing that was building his client base. "I've been thinking," Elena said one Saturday morning as they sat around their new kitchen table in the house they'd bought together. Sophia was at the counter making pancakes with the intense concentration she applied to all cooking tasks. "About what?" Marcus asked, looking up from the blueprints he was reviewing for a new project. "About expanding our family." Marcus's coffee cup stopped halfway to his mouth. "Expanding how?" "Well," Elena said, suddenly feeling nervous about the idea she'd been considering for weeks. "Sophia asked me the other day if she was ever going to have a brother or sister, and I realized that I'd love to give her that, if you'd want it too." Sophia turned from the stove, her eyes wide with excitement. "Are you talking about having a baby?" "We're talking about the possibility," Elena said carefully. "It would be a big change for all of us. I would love to have a baby brother or sister," Sophia declared with characteristic decisiveness. "I could teach them things and help take care of them and show them how to be brave when they're scared." Marcus was quiet for a long moment, and Elena found herself holding her breath while she waited for his response. "I always wanted Sophia to have siblings," he said finally. "But I never thought it would be possible, with just me trying to provide for her. Now, with you, with our life together." He paused, looking at Elena with an expression she couldn't quite read. "Are you sure you want this? A baby changes everything." "I'm sure," Elena said without hesitation. "I love being Sophia's mother, and I love being part of this family. Having a baby together would be the most natural extension of what we've already built." 6 months later, Elena was sitting in Dr. Patterson's office, holding Marcus's hand while they looked at ultrasound images of their developing baby. "Everything looks perfect," Dr. Patterson announced with a smile. "The baby is measuring exactly where we'd expect for 20 weeks, and all the development markers are excellent." "Can you tell what it is?" Sophia asked from her position in the chair beside Elena's examination table. She'd insisted on coming to every appointment, fascinated by the process of watching her sibling develop. "Would you like to know?" Dr. Patterson asked, looking between Marcus and Elena. "Yes," they said simultaneously, making Sophia giggle. "You're having a son." The silence that followed was filled with profound joy and anticipation. Marcus's eyes filled with tears as he looked at the ultrasound screen showing his son's tiny features. "A boy," he whispered, as if testing how the words sounded. "I'm going to have a baby brother," Sophia announced with the kind of pure happiness that only children could express without reservation. That evening, as they celebrated the news with Mrs. Chen and a few close friends, Elena found herself reflecting on the incredible journey that had brought them to this moment. Less than 2 years ago, she'd been a successful but lonely woman, whose greatest risk was inspecting construction sites for safety violations. Now she was part of a family that included a husband who challenged her to be more open and vulnerable, a daughter who taught her daily about unconditional love, and a son on the way who represented the future they were building together. "What are you thinking about?" Marcus asked as their guests began to leave, and Sophia headed to bed with instructions to start thinking about names for her baby brother. "I'm thinking about how different my life is now," Elena said, leaning into his embrace as they stood in their living room surrounded by the comfortable chaos of family life. "A year ago, if someone had told me I'd be married to a construction worker with a 7-year-old daughter and pregnant with my second child, I would have thought they were describing someone else's life. And now I can't imagine any other life. This is exactly where I'm supposed to be, exactly who I'm supposed to be with." Marcus kissed the top of her head, breathing in the familiar scent of her hair. "You know what I love most about our story?" "What?" "That we saved each other. I pulled you out of that wreckage, but you pulled our whole family out of a different kind of wreckage. You gave us hope, and security, and a future we never could have imagined." Elena turned in his arms to face him, studying the face that had become so dear to her. "We saved each other," she corrected gently. "And we're going to keep saving each other, every day, for the rest of our lives." 3 months later, baby Gabriel Marcus Rodriguez entered the world with the same determination and strength that seemed to run in his family. Sophia was the first person to hold him after his parents, whispering promises about all the things she would teach him, and all the ways she would protect him. Elena, holding her newborn son, while Sophia sat carefully beside her in the hospital bed, and Marcus dozed in the chair that had become his trademark position during medical situations, felt a completeness she'd never experienced before. Her pale skin and unusual appearance, which had once made her feel like an outsider looking in on other people's happiness, now seemed like exactly the right combination of traits for this particular family. "He's going to be tall like Papa," Sophia observed, studying her baby brother's long fingers. "But I think he might have your eyes, Mama." "We'll have to wait and see," Elena said, though privately she hoped Gabriel would inherit Marcus's warm brown eyes rather than her pale blue ones. She wanted her son to move through the world without the complications that came with being too different. "I love him already," Sophia announced with the matter-of-fact certainty that had become her trademark. "And I love our family. We're perfect exactly like we are." Elena looked around at her husband sleeping peacefully for the first time in days, her daughter carefully stroking her baby brother's tiny hand, and felt the truth of Sophia's words settle into her heart. They were perfect exactly as they were, unconventional, unexpected, and absolutely right for each other. 6 months after Gabriel's birth, Marcus surprised Elena with a proposal that had nothing to do with marriage but everything to do with their future together. "I want to adopt Sophia officially," he said one evening, as they sat together watching Sophia teach Gabriel to play peekaboo. "I know she's already mine in every way that matters, but I want it to be legal. I want her to have my name, and know that no one can ever question her place in this family." Elena felt tears spring to her eyes at the gesture, understanding the profound significance of what Marcus was offering. "Are you sure? The legal process can be complicated, and it's not necessary for her to know how much you love her." "It's necessary for me," Marcus said firmly. "Sophia chose me to be her father, and I choose her to be my daughter, forever, officially." The adoption process took 4 months to complete, but the day that Sophia officially became Sophia Elena Rodriguez was one of the happiest days of Elena's life. Standing in the courthouse with Gabriel in her arms, watching Marcus and Sophia sign the papers that made their family complete in the eyes of the law,
Elena realized that some fairy tales didn't end with happily ever after, because they were too busy living it to stop and declare it finished. That evening, as they celebrated with Mrs. Chen and their extended family of friends who had supported them through every challenge and triumph, Elena stepped out onto their back porch to get some air, and found Sophia sitting on the steps, staring up at the stars. "What are you thinking about, sweetheart?" Elena asked, settling beside her daughter with Gabriel sleeping peacefully in her arms. "I'm thinking about how everything worked out exactly the way it was supposed to," Sophia said with the philosophical nature that never ceased to amaze Elena. "Papa needed someone to love him the way he loves us, and you needed a family to love you back. And I needed a mama who understood that families are made by choice, not just by blood. And Gabriel needed all of us to be ready for him," Sophia said matter-of-factly. "He needed parents who knew how to love each other, and a big sister who knew how to take care of people." Elena marveled once again at her daughter's wisdom. "You're right. Everything did work out exactly the way it was supposed to. Do you think we'll have more adventures?" Sophia asked, leaning against Elena's shoulder. "I think we'll have all kinds of adventures," Elena replied, thinking about the construction company that was growing beyond Marcus's wildest expectations, about the consulting firm that was expanding into new markets, about the children who would grow up in this house filled with love and laughter, and the absolute certainty that they were cherished beyond measure. "Good," Sophia said with satisfaction. "I like adventures, especially when we have them together." As Elena sat on the porch steps of their home, surrounded by the family she'd never dared to dream she could have, she reflected on the accident that had brought them together. A moment of twisted metal and falling debris had led to this, a love story that proved that sometimes the most beautiful things emerged from the most unexpected circumstances. Marcus appeared in the doorway behind them, having settled Gabriel in his crib and come looking for his girls. "Room for one more on those steps?" he asked with the smile that still made Elena's heart skip a beat. "Always," Elena and Sophia said simultaneously, making all three of them laugh as Marcus settled beside his family under the vast Texas sky filled with stars and infinite possibilities. 5 years had transformed the Rodriguez family in ways that seemed almost miraculous to those who had known them during their earliest, most challenging days. Gabriel, now an energetic 5-year-old, with his father's warm brown eyes and his mother's curious intellect, was starting kindergarten at the same school where Sophia, now 12 and wise beyond her years, had just begun 7th grade. Elena stood at the kitchen window of their expanded home, watching Marcus teach Gabriel how to properly hold a hammer in their backyard workshop. The construction company that had started as a desperate dream had grown into Rodriguez Family Construction, employing 15 people and specializing in affordable housing developments that prioritized both quality and community. "Mama, Gabriel's trying to hammer nails again," Sophia called from the back door, her voice carrying that perfect blend of exasperation and affection that older siblings reserved for their younger brothers. "As long as Papa is supervising, it's fine," Elena replied, turning from the window with a smile. Sophia had inherited not just Elena's scientific mind but also her protective instincts, always watching out for Gabriel with the fierce devotion of someone who understood how precious family truly was. The morning routine in the Rodriguez household had evolved into a carefully orchestrated dance that accommodated everyone's schedules and needs. Elena's environmental consulting firm now operated out of a proper office downtown, but she maintained flexible hours that allowed her to be present for the important moments in her children's lives. Marcus had hired a capable foreman for the construction company, giving him the freedom to be home for breakfast and dinner most days. "Are you nervous about starting middle school?" Elena asked Sophia as they prepared lunch together, a weekend tradition that had developed naturally over the years. "A little," Sophia admitted, carefully slicing vegetables with the precision she applied to everything. "But mostly excited. Mrs. Patterson says they have an advanced science program, and I might be able to take high school chemistry next year if I test well enough." Elena felt the familiar surge of pride that came whenever she witnessed Sophia's academic ambitions. The little girl who had once worried about her father working too hard had grown into a confident young woman who approached challenges with determination and grace. Just remember, Elena said gently, grades are important but so is enjoying being 12. Don't be in such a hurry to grow up that you miss being a kid. Sophia nodded seriously, then surprised Elena with an unexpected question. Mama, do you ever miss your old life? Before you met us, I mean. Elena paused in her chopping, considering how to answer honestly without diminishing the magnitude of what Sophia was really asking. I miss the simplicity sometimes, she said carefully. It was easier when I only had to worry about myself. But I wouldn't trade the complexity of loving all of you for anything in the world. Good, Sophia said with satisfaction, because we like having you here, even when Gabriel's being loud and Papa's tracking mud through the house. That afternoon brought an unexpected visitor that reminded Elena of just how far their family had traveled from those early days of uncertainty and financial struggle. Dr. Martinez, Sophia's cardiac surgeon, appeared at their front door with a warm smile and a proposal that would change their perspective on giving back to their community. I hope you don't mind me stopping by unannounced, Dr. Martinez said as Elena invited her into their living room. But I have something I wanted to discuss with your family. Marcus emerged from the backyard with Gabriel on his shoulders, both of them covered in sawdust from their latest project. Sophia appeared from her room where she'd been reading, curious about their unexpected guest. Dr. Martinez, Sophia exclaimed with genuine pleasure. Did you come to check on my heart? It's still working perfectly. I can see that, Dr. Martinez replied with a laugh. You look wonderfully healthy. But actually I came to talk to all of you about something else entirely. She explained that the hospital was establishing a new program to help families navigate the financial and emotional challenges of pediatric cardiac surgery. They wanted to create a support system that would connect families going through the experience with others who had successfully navigated the same journey. We'd like your family to be part of our mentorship program, Dr. Martinez said, looking around at each of them. You've demonstrated such resilience and strength throughout Sophia's treatment and recovery. Other families could benefit enormously from your perspective and support. Elena felt Marcus's hand find hers as they absorbed the magnitude of what Dr. Martinez was proposing. It would mean opening their lives to other families in crisis, sharing their story of near financial ruin and unexpected salvation through love and determination. What exactly would we need to do? Marcus asked, ever practical about time commitments and family obligations. Meet with families before and after surgery. Share your experiences. Help them understand what to expect during recovery. Nothing formal or scheduled. Just be available when someone needs to talk to people who understand what they're going through. Sophia spoke up before either parent could respond. I think we should do it, she said with characteristic directness. Remember how scared we all were before my surgery. If we can help other kids feel less scared, we should definitely do that. Gabriel, who had been listening with the intense concentration he applied to all adult conversations, added his own perspective. I could show them my sister's scar and tell them how brave she was. Elena looked around at her family, seeing the same generosity of spirit that had drawn her to Marcus in the first place reflected in both of their children. I think Sophia and Gabriel are right, she said. We should definitely participate. The first family they mentored was the Garcias, whose 6-year-old son Miguel faced the same type of cardiac repair that Sophia had undergone years earlier. Elena found herself sitting in the same hospital waiting room where she had once worried about losing everything, now offering comfort and practical advice to parents experiencing their own moment of terror and hope. The financial part is overwhelming, Mrs. Garcia confided during one of their conversations. We have insurance, but the out-of-pocket costs are still more than we can handle. Elena remembered the desperate calculations Marcus had made, the impossible choice between Sophia's health and financial survival. There are programs available, she said gently, and sometimes solutions come from directions you don't expect. The important thing is to focus on Miguel's healing and let the financial pieces work themselves out. Marcus proved equally valuable in connecting with Mr. Garcia, who was struggling with the feeling that he should be able to solve his son's medical problems through sheer determination and hard work. I felt the same way, Marcus admitted during one of their conversations. Like I was failing Miguel by not being able to fix this myself. But sometimes accepting help isn't weakness. Sometimes it's the bravest thing you can do. Sophia's contribution to the mentorship program was perhaps the most powerful of all. She spoke to young patients with the authority of someone who had been exactly where they were, who understood the fear and the discomfort and the uncertainty about the future. The scar looks scary at first, she told Miguel during a pre-surgery visit, but after a while it just becomes part of you, like a badge that shows how brave you were. Did it hurt a lot? Miguel asked, his dark eyes wide with apprehension. For a little while, Sophia said honestly. But the doctors have really good medicine for pain, and my parents stayed with me the whole time. The best part is how much better you feel afterward. I can run and play sports now without getting tired. Watching Sophia comfort another child facing the same surgery she had endured made Elena realize how much her daughter had grown, not just physically but emotionally. The experience of overcoming a serious medical challenge had given Sophia a strength and empathy that would serve her well throughout her life.
The mentorship program also brought unexpected friendships into their lives. The Garcias became regular visitors to their home, and Miguel and Gabriel developed the kind of bond that often formed between children who had shared significant experiences. Elena found herself part of an informal network of mothers who had navigated pediatric medical crises, women who understood the particular combination of strength and vulnerability that such experiences demanded. It's funny, Elena remarked to Marcus one evening as they sat on their back porch watching Sophia help Gabriel with his homework while Miguel and his parents visited in their living room. I used to think being different meant being alone. Now I realize that our differences are what allow us to help other people. How do you mean? Marcus asked, settling back in his chair with the contentment of a man who had found his place in the world. My albinism made me understand what it feels like to be stared at, to have people make assumptions about what you can and can't do. Sophia's heart condition taught her empathy for other kids facing medical challenges. Your experience as a single father showed you how to ask for help when you need it. Elena paused, considering her thoughts. All the things that made our lives difficult also made us better equipped to help other people through their difficult times. Marcus nodded, understanding dawning in his expression. So we're not mentoring other families despite our struggles, we're mentoring them because of our struggles. Exactly. That understanding seemed to deepen over the months that followed as the Rodriguez family worked with more families facing pediatric cardiac surgery. Each situation was unique, but the common threads of fear, love, and determination ran through every story. Elena began to see patterns in how families coped with medical crises, and she started developing informal resources and support systems that extended beyond the hospital's official programs. The success of their mentorship work led to other opportunities for community involvement. Marcus found himself serving on the board of a nonprofit organization that built affordable housing for working families. Elena was invited to speak at conferences about family-centered care during medical crises. Sophia started a pen pal program connecting kids who had undergone cardiac surgery with kids who were preparing for the same procedures. I've been thinking about something, Sophia announced one evening at dinner, her tone suggesting she'd been considering her words carefully. What's that, Mima? Marcus asked, looking up from helping Gabriel cut his chicken. I want to become a pediatric cardiologist when I grow up, like Dr. Martinez, but also like us. Someone who understands what families go through, not just the medical part but the scared part and the money part and all the other parts. Elena felt her heart swell with pride and something deeper than pride, recognition that Sophia was discovering her calling through their family's experiences of struggle and healing. That's a beautiful goal, Elena said. And I think you'd be an incredible doctor. It means a lot of school though, Sophia continued, her practical nature asserting itself. Medical school is really expensive, and then residency training takes years. We'll figure it out, Marcus said without hesitation. Whatever it takes for you to achieve your dreams, we'll find a way to make it happen. Gabriel, who had been listening to the conversation with the serious attention he gave to all family discussions, suddenly spoke up. I want to build houses like Papa, but houses for doctors to live in while they're learning to be doctors. The adults looked at each other across the dinner table, amazed once again by their children's ability to envision futures that combined personal ambition with service to others. "That sounds like an excellent plan," Elena said solemnly. "Dr. Sophia will need somewhere to live during medical school, and Builder Gabriel can make sure she has a beautiful, affordable place to study." As summer turned to fall and the children settled into their new school routines, Elena found herself reflecting on the journey that had brought their family to this place of stability and purpose. The construction accident that had first brought her and Marcus together now seemed like the opening chapter of a much larger story about how love could transform not just individual lives but entire communities. The mentorship program had grown beyond Dr. Martinez's original vision, expanding to include support for families dealing with various pediatric medical challenges. Elena had been asked to help develop similar programs at other hospitals throughout the state, work that felt like a natural extension of her environmental consulting background but with a more personal mission. "I have news," Elena announced one evening as the family gathered in their living room for their weekly movie night tradition. "Good news or surprising news?" Sophia asked, settling onto the couch with Gabriel. "Both," Elena replied, taking a seat between Marcus and their children. "The State Medical Association wants to fund a statewide family support program based on what we've developed here. They've offered me a position directing the program, which would mean traveling more but also reaching families all across Texas." "That's amazing," Marcus said, his pride evident in his voice. "You'd be helping thousands of families." "But it would also mean changes for our family," Elena continued. "More travel, different schedules, new challenges." Sophia and Gabriel exchanged a look that seemed to communicate volumes before Sophia spoke for both of them. "Mama, you helped our family when we needed it most. Now you can help other families the same way. We'll figure out how to make it work because that's what families do." Gabriel nodded enthusiastically. "Plus, I could tell kids at school that my mama has the most important job in the whole state." Elena felt tears gather in her eyes as she looked around at her family, each of them ready to support her dreams just as she had supported theirs. The scared, lonely woman who had been trapped under construction debris 6 years ago could never have imagined this moment of absolute belonging and shared purpose. "There's one more thing," Elena said, reaching into her pocket for the small velvet box she'd been carrying for weeks. "Marcus, I know we've been married for 5 years, but I realized I never gave you a proper engagement ring." Marcus stared in surprise as Elena opened the box to reveal a simple gold band engraved with coordinates, the exact location where the construction accident had occurred that brought them together. "Elena," he breathed, clearly moved by the gesture and its meaning. "I wanted you to have something that marked not just our wedding day but the day our story really began." Elena explained. "The day I was broken, and you put me back together, not knowing that you were actually putting all of us back together." As Marcus slipped the ring onto his finger, Sophia and Gabriel applauded with the enthusiasm they reserved for the most important family moments. "This is definitely going in my diary," Sophia announced. "The day Mama gave Papa his engagement ring and took the job that's going to help kids all over Texas. And the day our family got even more awesome than it already was," Gabriel added with 5-year-old certainty. That night, as Elena and Marcus sat together on their back porch after the children had gone to bed, they could hear the distant sound of construction work from the new affordable housing development that Marcus's company was building across town. The rhythmic sounds of progress and growth seemed like a perfect soundtrack for their conversation about the future. "Are you sure about the state job?" Marcus asked, his arm around Elena's shoulders. "It's a big commitment, and you'll be away from home more." "I'm sure," Elena replied without hesitation, "but only because I know our family is strong enough to handle anything now. We've proven that we can face challenges together and come out stronger on the other side." Marcus nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. Their love story had never been about avoiding difficulties or finding an easy path through life. Instead, it had been about facing each challenge with honesty, courage, and an unshakable commitment to each other and their children. "Besides," Elena added with a smile, "Sophia and Gabriel are going to change the world someday. The least I can do is show them that their mother is brave enough to try to change it too." As they sat together under the vast Texas sky, surrounded by the home they'd built and the community they'd helped strengthen, Elena marveled at the perfect symmetry of their story. She had been rescued from wreckage and had learned to rescue others. Marcus had been a struggling single father, and had become a successful businessman who lifted up other working families. Sophia had been a sick child and was growing into a healer. Gabriel had been born into security and was already learning to share that security with others. Their fairy tale hadn't ended with a wedding or even with the resolution of their early struggles. Instead, it had evolved into something richer and more meaningful, a story about how love, when nurtured properly, could grow beyond the boundaries of a single family to touch and transform entire communities. The albino bride, who had once felt like an outsider looking in on other people's happiness, had become the radiant center of a family whose light now reached far beyond their own home, illuminating the path for other families navigating their own journeys through darkness toward hope. 10 years had painted silver threads through Marcus's dark hair and brought a confidence to Elena's bearing that made her luminous in ways that had nothing to do with her unique appearance. Their children had grown into remarkable young people whose paths seemed to shine with the same determination that had carried their parents through those early years of struggle and uncertainty. Sophia, now 22, and in her final year of medical school, stood at the podium of the annual Texas Pediatric Cardiology Conference, addressing an audience of doctors, nurses, and medical professionals who had gathered to hear about innovative approaches to family-centered cardiac care. "When I was 7 years old," Sophia began, her voice clear and confident, "I needed surgery to repair a heart defect that could have killed me. But the real healing didn't happen in the operating room. It happened in the weeks and months afterward, when my family learned that love could overcome any obstacle, including medical bills we couldn't afford and fears we didn't know how to voice." Elena watched from the audience, her heart swelling with pride as her daughter shared their family's story with the same grace and wisdom that had marked Sophia's character since childhood. Beside her, Marcus reached for her hand, his calloused fingers intertwining with hers in a gesture that had become as natural as breathing over their 15 years together. "The program my family helped develop has now assisted over 3,000 families across Texas," Sophia continued. "But more importantly, it has proven that healing happens not just through medical intervention, but through human connection, through the knowledge that you're not facing your fears alone." The standing ovation that followed Sophia's presentation seemed to last forever, but Elena barely heard it. She was thinking about the scared 7-year-old who had once asked if her heart would ever be strong enough for her to help other people, and marveling at how perfectly that question had been answered. Gabriel, now 15 and already towering over both his parents, squeezed Elena's shoulder from behind. "She's incredible," he whispered, his voice carrying the awe that he still felt for his older sister despite years of typical sibling dynamics. "She gets that from both of you," Elena replied, looking up at the young man who had inherited Marcus's gentle strength and her own analytical mind. Gabriel had spent his summer working construction with his father's crew, but his evenings were dedicated to architectural drawing and urban planning courses at the community college. After Sophia's presentation, the family gathered for lunch at their favorite restaurant, the same place where Elena and Marcus had shared their first official date all those years ago. The establishment had changed ownership twice since then, but they continued the tradition of celebrating important milestones there. Sophia said, settling into the booth across from her parents while Gabriel slid in beside her, "I have news about my residency match." The restaurant seemed to fade into the background as the family focused entirely on Sophia's words. Medical residency placement would determine where she would spend the next several years of training, and potentially where she would build her career. "I matched at Children's Hospital of San Antonio," Sophia announced, her face breaking into a smile that lit up the entire room. "Pediatric cardiology track, starting in July." The celebration that erupted from their table drew amused glances from other diners, but Elena didn't care. Sophia would be training at the same hospital where she had undergone her life-saving surgery, working with the same cardiac team that had given their family a second chance at happiness. "Dr. Martinez is still there," Sophia continued, practically glowing with excitement. "She's going to be one of my attending physicians. She said she's been hoping I'd end up back there ever since I told her about my career plans." Marcus wiped away tears he didn't bother to hide. "Mija, your mama Isabella would be so proud of you right now. She always dreamed of helping children, and look at what you're going to accomplish."
It was one of the rare times Marcus mentioned his first wife, and Elena felt the familiar gratitude that had replaced any trace of jealousy years ago. Isabella's memory was woven into their family's story, not as something painful or divisive, but as part of the foundation that had made Sophia the remarkable young woman she had become. "There's something else," Sophia said, her expression growing more serious. "The hospital wants to expand the family mentorship program into a formal department. They've offered me the opportunity to help design and eventually direct a comprehensive support system for families dealing with pediatric medical crises." Elena felt her breath catch. The informal program they had started with Dr. Martinez years ago had grown beyond anything they had originally envisioned, but to see it become Sophia's professional focus felt like the most perfect circle imaginable. It would mean combining clinical medicine with program administration, Sophia explained. Treating patients but also ensuring that every family has access to the kind of support that made such a difference for us. "It sounds like your calling," Elena said softly, remembering the 7-year-old who had once declared that she wanted to become a doctor who understood the scared part, and the money part, and all the other parts of being sick. Gabriel, who had been unusually quiet during the conversation, suddenly spoke up with characteristic directness. "I want to design the new hospital wing." Everyone turned to look at him, and Gabriel's cheeks reddened slightly under the attention. "I mean when I'm old enough and have my architecture degree. But the plans they showed us during the hospital tour last month don't really account for families. There's nowhere for parents to sleep comfortably, nowhere for siblings to do homework, no outdoor spaces for kids who are stuck inside for weeks." Elena and Marcus exchanged a look of amazement. Their 15-year-old son was already thinking about how to improve the physical environment for families going through exactly what they had experienced years ago. "I think that's a wonderful idea," Elena said. "Medical facilities should absolutely be designed with families in mind, not just patients and staff." "I've been sketching some ideas," Gabriel admitted, pulling out his phone to show them detailed architectural drawings he'd been working on. Rooms where families can stay together, quiet spaces for studying or just thinking, outdoor gardens that are accessible even from upper floors. As Gabriel showed them his designs, Elena realized that both of her children had found ways to transform their family's experience of medical crisis into opportunities to help others. Sophia through medicine and program development, Gabriel through thoughtful design of healing spaces. The afternoon stretched into evening as they talked about dreams and plans and the ways their family's story continued to unfold in directions they never could have predicted. When they finally drove home through the familiar streets of San Antonio, Elena found herself reflecting on the journey that had brought them to this moment. "Do you ever think about that day at the construction site?" she asked Marcus as they settled into bed that night, the house quiet around them with both children asleep in their own rooms. "Every day," Marcus replied without hesitation, "not because I regret anything, but because I'm amazed by everything that grew from that one moment." "Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if you hadn't been there," Elena mused. "If someone else had pulled me out of that wreckage." "But I was there," Marcus said firmly. "And you were there. And everything that happened afterward happened exactly the way it was supposed to happen." Elena curled closer to her husband, feeling the solid warmth of his presence that had anchored her through 15 years of marriage and parenthood. "I love our story," she said simply. "Even the hard parts. Especially the hard parts. They're what made everything else possible." The next morning brought news that would add yet another chapter to their ever-evolving story. Elena's phone rang while she was making breakfast, and the voice on the other end belonged to Dr. Patricia Williams, the state medical director who had overseen Elena's family support program for the past several years. "Elena, I'm calling with an opportunity that I think will interest you greatly," Dr. Williams said. "The federal government is launching a national initiative based on the success of our Texas program. They want to create family support systems in children's hospitals across the country." Elena sank into a kitchen chair, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what Dr. Williams was proposing. "A national program. They want you to head it up. It would mean relocating to Washington for a few years, but the impact would be extraordinary. Hundreds of thousands of families could benefit from what you've developed here." Elena's mind raced through the implications. Gabriel was still in high school, just starting to settle into his architectural studies. Sophia would be beginning her residency in San Antonio. The timing seemed impossible, but the opportunity was unprecedented. "Can I have some time to discuss it with my family?" Elena asked. "Of course. But Elena, this is the chance to take everything you've learned about helping families in crisis and scale it to help the entire country. I can't think of anyone better qualified or more passionate about this work." After the call ended, Elena sat in her quiet kitchen staring at the coffee mug in her hands and trying to process the enormity of the decision she was facing. A national program would mean leaving the home and community they had built, but it would also mean helping families in ways they had never dreamed possible. When she shared the news with Marcus and the children that evening, their responses reflected the generous spirit that had always characterized their family. "You have to do it," Sophia said immediately. "Think about how many families you could help. How many kids like I was who are scared and don't know what to expect." Gabriel nodded in agreement. "And I could finish high school anywhere. Plus Washington probably has amazing architecture programs for college." Marcus was quiet for a longer moment, and Elena could see him working through the practical implications of such a major change. Finally, he spoke with the certainty that had marked every major decision in their marriage. "If this is your calling, then this is where we go," he said simply. "Rodriguez family construction can expand to the East Coast. There's always a need for quality affordable housing, no matter what city we're in." 6 months later, the Rodriguez family stood in the lobby of Children's National Medical Center in Washington, D.C., where Elena would be establishing the headquarters for the National Family Support Initiative. Sophia had arranged to spend a month working with Elena before returning to San Antonio to begin her residency, and Gabriel was enrolled in a prestigious high school with one of the best architecture programs in the country. "It's strange being back in a children's hospital," Sophia observed as they toured the facility that would become Elena's new workplace. "But good strange. Like coming full circle." Elena nodded, understanding exactly what her daughter meant. Walking through the corridors, filled with families facing the same fears and uncertainties they had once experienced, felt both familiar and profound. The work of establishing a national program proved to be as challenging as Elena had expected, but also more rewarding than she had dared to hope. Within 2 years, family support programs based on their Texas model were operating in 43 states, providing comprehensive assistance to families dealing with pediatric medical crises. Each program was adapted to local needs and resources, but all shared the core principle that had guided Elena's work from the beginning: families heal together, and no one should face a medical crisis alone. On a crisp October morning, 3 years after their move to Washington, Elena received a call that brought their story full circle in the most unexpected way. Dr. Martinez was calling from San Antonio with news about Sophia's residency progress. "Elena, I wanted you to know that Sophia has been accepted into our fellowship program," Dr. Martinez said, her voice warm with pride. "She'll be staying on as a pediatric cardiology fellow, and we're also creating a new position for her as Director of Family Services." Elena felt tears of joy spring to her eyes. Sophia would be returning to the hospital where her own journey had begun, but this time as a doctor dedicated to helping other families navigate the same path. "There's more," Dr. Martinez continued. "The hospital board has approved funding for a new family-centered care wing, designed specifically to accommodate the needs of children and their families during extended stays. The architectural firm they've chosen for the project is Rodriguez Design Group." Gabriel's firm. Elena gasped, hardly able to believe what she was hearing. "Your son submitted a proposal that blew everyone away. His design incorporates everything we've learned about family-centered care over the past decade." The board voted unanimously to approve his plans. That evening, Elena called an impromptu family meeting via video chat, with Sophia joining from San Antonio and Gabriel from his dorm room at Georgetown, where he was now a junior studying architecture and urban planning. "So let me make sure I understand this correctly," Marcus said, trying to keep the amazement out of his voice. "Sophia is going to be a fellow and director at the hospital where she had her surgery. Gabriel is going to design the new wing at that same hospital, and Elena's national program is being used as a model for family support worldwide." "That's exactly right," Elena confirmed, still struggling to absorb the symmetry of it all. "And Mom," Gabriel added with a grin that was visible even through the video chat, "my design includes a special consultation room named after you. The Elena Rodriguez Family Conference Room, where families can meet with medical teams in a space that's designed to feel comfortable and hopeful rather than clinical and scary. Elena was crying now, overwhelmed by the realization that their family's story of struggle and healing had grown into something that would touch countless other families for generations to come. "I love you all so much," she managed to say through her tears. "I'm so proud of the people you've become and the work you're choosing to do." "We learned from the best," Sophia replied softly. "You and Papa taught us that the hardest things in life can become the most meaningful things, if you approach them with love and determination." As Elena looked around at her family, scattered now across the country but united by bonds that distance could never weaken, she marveled at the journey that had brought them to this moment. The scared, lonely woman who had been trapped under construction debris 20 years ago could never have imagined this legacy of love and service. Their story had begun with rescue, but it had evolved into something much more profound, a testament to the power of love to transform not just individual lives, but entire communities and eventually the world itself. Elena Rodriguez, the albino bride who had once felt like an outsider, had indeed become a radiant light, but not just for her own family. Her light now shone in hospitals across the nation, in the lives of thousands of families who had been touched by the programs she had developed, and in the work of her children who were carrying that light into the next generation. The fairy tale that had begun with a construction accident had become a legacy of healing that would continue long after Elena and Marcus were gone, proof that sometimes the most beautiful stories are not about escaping darkness, but about learning to create light that others can follow. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up, just click and check them out.